So we can just, you know, roll right into it and kind of talk about, first I want to know how training has been going, you know, since we're all now back in the gym since we talked last. I know you're teaching kickboxing now, which is something new for you at Gracie 717. You're also still, you know, training a lot of jiu-jitsu I see in the room whenever I'm in. So how's training been going? You know, how do you feel leading into, you know, the end of this year?
I feel pretty good, honestly. I know quarantine messed a lot of people up, obviously, and I did the best I could to stay in some sort of shape. Because you know, gyms were closed for a long time too, like public gyms.
Oh, yeah,
But
like you go to Crunch, right?
yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah,
was
okay.
like, I would find sure, you know, even like the local boxing gym that I train at. I mean, nothing was open. So it was a lot of working out at home and body weight exercises. But I mean, I feel decent. I thought I would feel a lot worse. And knowing that I'm moving up a weight class to 125, I tried to, you know, I put on a little bit of weight, but I'm honestly not far off from that weight. So I feel pretty good cardio wise. I'm trying to stay, you know, keep a little more muscle on than I normally do because I want to stay strong, but I still feel fast. I don't run as much, honestly. I'm focusing more on, well, first of all, because I hate it, but I absolutely hate it, but I'm focusing more on doing what I'm going to be actually doing. So like sparring or live rolling and things like that. I just use the running to complement my training and my cardio, but I feel pretty good, honestly. I was supposed to compete grappling industries. I think it was last weekend.
Hmm.
They didn't have anybody at my weight or my belt class, and they wouldn't let me move up a belt class. So I just didn't do it.
Yeah, and you know, I think everybody really has that itch to compete, which is, you know, kind of makes sense. We've all been out of competition in every form of it, from grappling, kickboxing, MMA, what have you. So are you looking forward to anything in particular since grappling industries, you know, they didn't have anybody for you? Are you targeting any grappling tournaments? I know Art of War has a card coming up in December, which would be the first amateur MMA fights in Pennsylvania in a while. So what are you looking forward to?
There is another grappling industries coming up one weekend in November. I don't know the date.
Mhm.
So will most likely sign up for that just to use that voucher that I have. Art of War I saw just posted. Super excited to see that. The only thing I'm kind of bummed about is it's on a Friday, and where I work, I can't really get off during the week. So I'm kind of working on that at the moment, trying to see if there's a way I can figure that out. If there isn't a way to figure it out, I know a lot of other promotions. I know I just saw there's a promotion in Pittsburgh. They got some stuff going on. I know Virginia has some stuff going on. So, I mean, my options are kind of open at the moment. The only thing I would need like 4 or 5 weeks advance notice just to get in a little bit better shape. Other than that, I'm good to go. Like, I want to do something as soon as possible. Like you said, I'm dying to do something because I want to get one more fight in before I switch over.
Yeah, and it's funny because everybody kind of started putting shows on now at the same time, right? They had this long layoff, and then I think they kind of figured out, well, we can do, you know, X amount of people in the building and this and that and all these different things. So now that like 247 is coming back, you said there's some promotions in Virginia, what have you. Has anyone been reaching out to you about taking fights or fighting specific people in any of those promotions?
There was, I forget the name of the promotion. It wasn't around here. I think it was in Georgia or Kentucky or something, somewhere super far. They reached out to me on like a week's notice, and they had someone at 125. And I was like, as much as I would love to do that, there was just no possible way for me to make it there. It was like an 8 hour drive. I would have had, I mean, I wouldn't have made weigh ins. I work until 6 o'clock at night on a Friday. But honestly, they're the only people that really have reached out. There's not much going on. I feel like the pickings are real slim. And people that are getting scheduled, I feel like they're trying to schedule a lot of pros over amateurs, just because of like the travel expenses and things like that. Obviously everyone's on a tight budget now, so yeah, I haven't heard much from anybody besides them, and that was a couple months ago.
And, you know, you are at a new weight class too, right? You're going to 125. You want to stay there. I personally, from seeing you in the gym and seeing you kind of not kill yourself to make 115, but put a lot of focus on that weight cut, right? I think it's a good move for you to also go to 125. You said you feel, you know, pretty fast still. You feel strong. Um, Going to that weight class, is there anything that you see as kind of like a downside of moving up a 10 pounds to the 125 weight class?
The only thing that, and other people have mentioned it too, at 125, I think the people are going to be a little bigger. That's expected. Whether it's weight wise or height wise, I think height wise is where it's going to get me. But at the same time, a fight I had almost 2 years ago at 115, I fought a girl that was 5'8" and I'm
Mm-hmm.
5'2". So it's like, does it really matter? I'm going to fight people bigger than me anyway. I might as well go somewhere where I feel better physically, I feel better mentally, put, the same amount of work in. And maybe, hopefully, obviously, I'm looking to get better results. But
Mm-hmm.
the size difference was what I was worried about at first, but I'm not too so worried about it anymore, honestly.
Yeah, and when you're in the gym, at Gracie, there's not a whole lot of girls that you train with that are your size. Allie being one of them, but she doesn't strike. So most of the time when you're sparring with taller sparring partners anyway. So it might actually benefit you, right, to move up to 125, where you're used to throwing, those punches and kicks on someone that might be like that 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that.
Right. Yeah, no, and that was another point, training, and, sometimes it's beneficial to train with bigger people or bigger guys, but it's also nice to have, a girl your size or something like that. But I like training with the guys. I'm not opposed to it. I feel like a lot of women hate it because it's not realistic. I kind of like it because it conditions me for the like the punching aspect. Like, they might hit a little harder at 125, but it's nothing I haven't seen yet. I mean, with you punching me, Christian punching me, Josh, it's stuff I'm used to. Nobody's gonna kick me as hard as Christian Carr, you know what I mean? So I'm ready for it. I'm excited. I think I'm gonna perform a lot better.
Yeah, and that's a good point where you are kind of training with mostly men in the gym. You are kind of conditioned to those harder strikes. Just naturally, that's coming from a 45-pound fighter, 155-pound fighter. Even if they're going 60%, it's still gonna be pretty hard
Right.
in the gym. Um, and speaking of
Yeah.
striking, right? We hit on earlier. You are now coaching on Fridays at Gracie 717. So how has that transition been to teaching your own classes, and then has it helped you kind of understand striking any more than you did previously?
Yeah, definitely. I think teaching has opened a lot of different, things that I never noticed before. Because when you take on the coaching role, when I'm training, say I'm taking Christian's class or something, I have my own personal questions, like, oh, well, like, how do I do this? But when I'm coaching, I have questions that I would have never even thought about that everyone's asking me, and then I'm like, oh, wait, well, let me think about that for a second, because I never thought of it that way, or I never saw it that way, like, what would I do to react to that? So it definitely, it's helping me understand it a lot more. It's also giving me the opportunity to show some of my like my signature moves, things I can show people, and it's giving me time to work on stuff that I need work on. I'll purposely work a combo that I'm absolutely terrible at, and I'll show it to the class, obviously for them to learn. And some of them may excel at it, but mainly, for the people that aren't good at it, we work on a lot of Superman kicks in my class, or Superman punches, because that's one thing that a lot of the people that come to kickboxing, they're terrified of it. They don't like it. So I'm like, okay, that's what we're going to do then. So it's cool for me. I like it. I love teaching people. I wish I would have started doing it a little sooner. I think it definitely would have helped me, but it's helping me now. So yeah, it's definitely broadened my horizons on striking.
And speaking of broadening your horizons, another thing that I think you focused on a lot in the past, probably year to year and a half, has been your grappling. You put a lot of time in the gi, right? Which I think a lot of MMA fighters are kind of 50-50 on. Should we train in the gi? Should we not train in the gi? Is it beneficial? So how has gi jiu-jitsu helped you, over the past, what has it been, probably year and a half, 2 years since you really dove in the gi and started taking those classes?
Yeah, gi is gi is interesting. I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy it at all for like the first 6 months I started. I was like, I'm not doing this ever again. But it's a slower art than no gi. You kind of have to stop and think sometimes. I'm not used to people grabbing my sleeves and my collar. If anything, it just pisses me off more. but it forces you to stop. It forces you to think, okay, how am I gonna, get past this? Where do I need to go next? It kind of helps with that human chess mindset. Okay, like I need to do these 3 steps to get just to this point, and then once I get to that point, I need to start setting up something else. It's helped me with escapes too. I mean, it's hard to do escape stuff in a gi. So when I go to no gi, I find myself escaping things a lot easier that normally I wouldn't have, because I don't have the resistance of the gi, but it kind of conditioned me, to take my time, make sure I'm doing things properly. It's definitely improved my technique. It's slowed me down. Sometimes I move too quick, and of course, you miss something or you misstep. So it's kind of it's been more technical for me, I would say.
Yeah, and that's the way that you kind of summed it up pretty much the same way that I do is gi to me has always been a way to really focus on escapes. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can escape certain techniques in the gi, not saying that you can do it easier in no gi, right? But no gi for the most part, there's less friction. So you
Right.
can kind of slip out of something maybe a half second earlier, or somebody might not have as strong of a grip because they can't grab your lapel, or they can't do this or that with your sleeve. Now taking that those gi classes and then translating it into your no gi game, how do you feel going back between the two? Like when I go to no gi, then I feel like I'm faster than I was previously, even if it's just something in my head, right? I just feel like I'm moving quicker because I don't have the gi on.
Right. Yeah. No. And again, I'll go back. I'm not saying I hate gi, but I definitely don't prefer it. I prefer no gi. I like being able to transition a lot quicker. I like being able to move a lot quicker because I'm a top fighter. I don't like being on the bottom. I don't like having people in my guard. I like being on top. I like pressuring, and I like takedowns. I like to start standing up, which we have a lot of guard pullers in jiu-jitsu, but I feel like in no-gi we attract more of the wrestling background because it is no-gi. So I like that aspect of standing up, working your takedowns, getting on top and pressure, pressure, pressure. I'm a pressure fighter, and I'm a pressure person when it comes to jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I definitely feel faster, just a lot quicker with my transitions and things like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. A lot of people who come to jujitsu from wrestling, they excel on the feet, but then
Yeah.
they also are very uncomfortable on their backs. Right? You're taught from the time you're 5 years old, if you wrestle your whole life, that being on your back is a very bad place to be. And then the first day in jujitsu, you
Right.
come in, they're like, lay on your back, and this is where you're dominant. Um, so
Yep.
it's just a very different game for different people with different backgrounds, and I think that's why everybody kind of gravitates to different things in jujitsu. So that being said, do you have a preferred a submission or transition or like a 2 or 3 step movement that you've been working on lately?
Can't really like name anything in particular off the top of my head. I do a lot of, I mean, I have, like my 2 or 3 favorite takedowns. I love the Tayatoshi takedown. That's one I have a really high like finish rate on. And if you watch it, like my Pan Ams last year, I hit that like 3 times in one match.
Mm-hmm.
That's like one of my favorite takedowns. For some reason I never really accepted it until about a couple months ago. I just seem to like fall into grabbing arm bars from anywhere. So it started, I don't know, it's really strange. They just pop out at me. So I'm like, okay, well maybe, I should really like focus on this. So that's something I've been looking for more, something I've been getting for more of. And I think my back game is underrated. Like when I get on someone's back, I can stay there pretty long, and I can either transition to an arm bar, transition to mount, or I just hang out there and I finish a choke. So I'd say my favorite things right now are arm bars and chokes, whether it be like a rear naked or a guillotine. They just seem to like, I don't know, they just like come to me. So I'm like, all right, I'll take it.
that's
I'll
the
just
that's one of the fun parts of progressing in jiu-jitsu is one day you just have an aha moment of like, I can armbar someone from
yeah,
here, and then the first time you
yeah,
do it, you're like, I could also do it from here and from here, and then
yeah,
that's all you think about.
yeah. It's like a
uh,
domino effect happening.
yeah, and it just keeps going. Exactly. So another thing that has been a hot topic, I think, in our gym and then in most gyms for jiu-jitsu has been points tournaments versus submission only tournaments. And I just wanted to get your take on which you prefer and why.
Oh, I had an argument about this the other day. Okay, I understand the concept of points tournaments, especially for beginners, because it teaches you proper techniques, proper sweeps, properly, how to properly hold someone, it's more of that position before submission idea, which I think is very important for MMA. Totally get the point thing. I totally understand it, but I absolutely freaking hate it. I prefer sub only. I think especially like the sub only tournaments that don't have the time limits, especially once you start getting to the higher belts, it might take you more than 8 minutes to sub someone. Like it could take you 8 minutes just to get in a position where you can start thinking about subbing someone, especially at a higher belt level. Like to me, like that takes time. Like, and you see it in MMA fights all the time with the 5-round fights. Like people take their time in fights to get where they want to get on someone, because you got to figure it out. I mean, like you're not going against some bum for the most part. But to me, I don't know. I like sub only, especially in the mindset of it being an MMA fight. I could be under you for 2 out of the 3 rounds in an MMA fight, and then in the last round I come back and sub you. Like to me, that's more realistic for the sport. But I appreciate the point tournaments, because I mean I've not placed first in points tournaments because it was a points tournament, and I wasn't keeping in mind like, hey, you need to secure positions. You need to secure positions besides just jumping into something. So I appreciate the points for that aspect, but 100% prefer sub only tournaments.
Okay, got it. So don't throw you into a points tournament without telling you is what you're saying.
I'll do it, but
but you're not going to like it, especially a gi points tournament. Then you might never come back.
But this is what doesn't make sense to me. All of the points tournaments I've done, I've signed up for gi and no gi. I've never not placed first in a gi tournament. I've always placed first, but in my no gi tournaments, I'll place like, first or second or third. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, because I hate gi and I hate points tournaments. I can't figure it out.
Then keep doing the things you don't like.
Yep. Pretty much.
So I was FaceTiming with Alex Einhorn when we were watching the LFA over the weekend. The LFA does live scoring in MMA.
See, that's nice.
So yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on that. Would you, as a fighter, like to know you won this round 10-9, you lost this round 10-9, so it's up to the third round? Or do you like the system that most promotions have where you don't know the score and you just have to listen to your coaches and say, we think you got that one?
Right. So here's my opinion on it. Back in 2018, when I was doing all of those Thai fights, the promoter I was fighting for actually made a suggestion, because on some of the cards, there were a few fighters that got completely ripped off. Like, and I understand it's amateur, but still, like, it was ridiculous. And he made the same comment of, he wants to put a screen up after each round. The judge has to submit their score for that round, because he was accusing them of going back and, just swapping scores or, changing stuff. So I think for the aspect of holding the judges accountable, I like that idea. As a fighter personally, I don't know if I would really want to know, because I don't know if it would mess with me mentally. Like I want to assume that I need to work as hard as I possibly can in every single round. So I don't know if I would physically want to see it, but I think it's a great idea, to put it somewhere so that we're holding the judges accountable. Because I mean, how many times have we seen fights where it's like that person 100% did not win? Like, how could they have possibly scored it like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's every card. You could watch any single UFC, Bellator, PFL, LFA, down to Art of War, right? It doesn't matter. There's always a fight where you kind of look at the person beside you and be like, I don't agree with that. So, accountability for the judges is the big thing. The other thing Alex and I were talking about is that if you're up 10-9, 10-9, right, going into the third, there's a very, small reward for you to go for a finish at that point. So there's a lower finish rate, I guess you would say, in fights with a live score, and that doesn't make Dana White happy, but I don't think he'll ever implement live scoring for that reason. Now, if you're going into a fight winning those first 2 rounds, is that your mentality, right, going into the third round, or are you still going to try to go for that finish?
I think it just depends on how the fight's going. If it's someone, that's really giving it back to me, like they're super close rounds, like I wouldn't want to risk throwing up some sort of submission or putting myself in a bad position. you'll hear people say like, hey, just like survive this last round, like don't do anything stupid sort of thing. I think for the sake of that, say I'm fighting someone that's like dangerously good at jujitsu and I've been dominating both rounds. The third round, I'm not going to take him down and try to submit him because I wouldn't want to put myself in that position of getting submitted, potentially. So I think it depends on how the fight's going. But I think ultimately, as a fighter, again, because of the judges, we always want to try to finish the fight because we never know what the judges are going to say. So, I mean, that scoring could potentially change people's minds on wanting to finish the last round, maybe just to avoid, getting caught in anything.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, just listen to your coaches. I learned that when I fought Jamal, and they told me don't come out and shoot, and then I came out and shot, and he choked me to sleep in front of all my family and friends. So just listen to your coaches, and I think you'll be okay. um, so
I,
before I let you go, I just wanted to open it up to you. It's been a while since we've got to talk and have one of these conversations here. So if you have any new sponsors, training partners, friends, family, anybody you want to throw shout outs to, the floor is yours. Just kind of, let people know, who's been supporting you.
So I don't really have any new sponsors at the time. Everything's pretty much the same, obviously, for obvious reasons. But everyone at Gracie 717 that's been, helping us out for the jiu-jitsu competitions, they've been nothing but fantastic. My boyfriend Jeff has been super helpful, both for striking and for jiu-jitsu. He's he got his own Thai pads to hold for me to help me out with that. So I really appreciate him for that. And we've also been doing, some cross training at a couple places. We visited Vlad's school, Vlad Kulikov Grappling Academy in New Jersey. They're always a great time, super helpful people. And 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Bethlehem. They're really helping me with my MMA work, so I really appreciate them for that. But of course, all of my teammates, everyone at Gracie, we're super thankful for you. So thank you guys.
Awesome, Lateesha. Yeah, tell Jeff to stop dodging me, and I'll see you guys both in the gym shortly.
I will.
All right. All right. Thanks.